They're dangerous for children because of the nicotine component.
One of these pods has as much nicotine in it as a whole pack of cigarettes.
Those nicotine-containing devices carry known health risks to developing teenage brains.
Columbia University researchers using this machine found the vapor has toxic metals like chromium, nickel, zinc, and lead. And as we know, there is no safe level of lead.
Studies show some teens who likely would not have smoked regular cigarettes are using e-cigarettes. It also found teens who do vape are 6 times more likely as those who have never vaped to later begin smoking.
When's the first time you tried vaping?
When I was in 6th grade.
Newer devices look like computer thumb drives. It's harder for educators to detect them.
Kids can hide them anywhere.
Their socks, their backpacks, their pockets, their wallets, their bras.
One study out of Harvard found some of these artificial flavors contain diacetyl. That's a chemical linked to severe respiratory disease.
Juuling, as it's called, has spiked all over the country among youth. But unlike alcohol or cigarettes, often parents aren't even sure what it is.
It's possible that e-cigarette smoke may contribute to lung and bladder cancer as well as heart disease in humans.
There is no doubt that America is facing an epidemic of youth e-cigarette or vaping use. What originated as a smoking cessation aid has quickly become a popular and addictive product. Just as in many communities and school districts in Texas, teen vaping is a growing concern in Klein ISD.
So back in 2007, there was the actual product of e-cigarette that was made available on the market. But it became very popular with use between 2011 to 2015. We saw a 900% increase in use among youth, our adolescent and young adolescent teenagers. There was a slight decline in the use of e-cigarettes between 2014 and 2016, but then it jumped back up immediately, and especially a 78% increase of e-cigarette use among youths just in the past year, and that has been attributed to the Juul. Studies have looked at the prevalence in middle school, and it's 1 in 20 middle schoolers. So children 11, 12 years of age are vaping, and 8th graders, 1 in 10.
If you look at when vaping devices came on the market, there was a steady increase, and now we have this huge upward curve to people using these devices and the access to the devices. So that's why it's been calling an epidemic.
I would encourage any mom, dad, or school district, if they're looking at this, to Google vape or smoke shops and put a 5-mile radius from where they're sitting and watch all the little red icons drop up. It's amazing that it is that saturated.
This is an epidemic.
What is vaping exactly?
Vaping is the term of actually inhaling a tobacco product of nicotine with some other aerosolized compounds, and it's through an e-cigarette device.
Vaping is a device that you insert a liquid or a gel substance, and the person will inhale it. So the device either modifies it so that it turns it into a vapor and the person inhales it. Sometimes the vape devices, depending on the size and shape, produce a lot of the vapor, or what you would imagine would be smoke, and some are designed to have very little vapor, but it's still, the substance is still the same that you insert into it.
Generally, a vaping device consists of a mouthpiece, a battery, a cartridge for containing the juice, and a heating component for the device that is powered by the battery. When the device is used, the battery heats up the heating component, which turns the content of the e-liquid into an aerosol that is inhaled into the lungs and then exhaled. What's worse is that the e-cigarettes can be used to deliver marijuana and other synthetic drugs.
The substances that are in vape devices will vary dependent upon where the substance is purchased from and what the main goal of the item is. So some are marketed as flavors, Some are marketed as an alternative to cigarettes, so you know they're definitely going to have nicotine in them. And some are marketed in a way that are deceiving. So they may be marketed as potpourri or as something called bath salts. However, they are actually synthetic drugs. So it depends what type of solution you put into the device, but it's never just water.
So much of this stuff is laced with something else. There are some crazy concoctions out there.
I read about one recently called Flocka, and it's very common actually in parts of Florida. It's a synthetic drug that is very similar to methamphetamine, but right now it's not illegal because it's brand new, and the FDA has not been able to prevent it from being brought in, and it's manufactured in China. Hospitalizations and deaths have occurred. And so we have actually some Flocka here in Texas too.
The newest and most popular vaping product is the Juul.
The Juul is unique because it is a very small, it looks like a USB device. It's very small, and so it's easily concealed. And there are a lot of different flavors for the juice for the Juul. So it's become very attractive to our youth because they can smoke or they can vape the Juul very easily without being seen by any authority, teachers, parents, and it doesn't have the odor, it has less of the vapor, so it's very easy to hide.
They're basically odorless. When the vape is exhaled, it emits a smell, and then it's almost instantaneously gone, and there is no residual like it would be with cigarettes where the smell lingers on the body and in the hair and stuff like that, clothes and stuff like that. It's just not there.
You would not be able to know just by smell what is in the device, because the people who are selling these illegal substances, the chemists who make the compounds, are always 1 or 2 or 3 steps ahead of the legal system. Marijuana has a distinct smell, so therefore they create a synthetic compound that does not have that distinct marijuana smell. So now school officials are aware that fruity smells indicate that there's this person or someone in the room has used a vaping device. Well, the police department tell us that now the chemists are making the synthetic drugs without a fruity smell. So eventually they'll be completely odorless.
Some of these devices are so cleverly disguised as thumb drives or small. They're small and you really can't tell what they are. When we see them out in public, a lot of times they're going to be a lot longer with a square box, the very large ones. But to be honest with you, those are kind of first generation. They've definitely moved away from that into a lot smaller, more compact devices, and they're disguised as almost anything.
Vaping devices come in all different shapes and sizes. Children want more discreet devices because typically teenagers and children, it's illegal for them to have these devices, so therefore they have to have them in smaller packaging and and be able to keep them discreetly hidden.
What is so alarming about these vape products? Medical experts agree that nicotine, apart from its addictive qualities, is not an inherently evil substance. However, synthetic nicotine, in its concentrated liquid form, is exceedingly toxic and a different matter altogether.
The way that the nicotine is delivered, it makes it more potent and therefore is more addictive than a regular cigarette.
So children can actually get more nicotine than they think, and they can end up with nicotine poisoning. And so nicotine poisoning, we've seen a huge surge of children come to the ER with side effects from nicotine.
One vape can contain the same amount of nicotine as 20 cigarettes. Well, many of these kids are going through 3 and 4 vials of that a day. Can you imagine the effects on the human body when you're vaping the equivalent of 4 packs of cigarettes, unfiltered cigarettes, a day?
Their brains are still developing. Until they're 25 years of age, they are still creating new synapses in their brain. They're learning things much more rapidly than an adult would. And so their brains are more susceptible to the effects of nicotine. And nicotine can actually prime the teenager's brain so it can make their brain more susceptible to addiction to other more harmful substances like the heroines and the cocaine.
While the risks of vaping are still being carefully researched, some known dangers of vaping are terrifying.
Even from as little as one hit, that's one inhalation, one deep breath in of that substance, can have long-term health effects. And what's commonly reported is paranoia, anxiety, sleep disturbance, and night terrors. Those are the most commonly reported side effects that stay with individuals for long periods of time with minimal use of the vaping device.
If a child has a pre-existing mood disorder like depression, then the nicotine can bring that out. Or it can create new mood disorders, and it can interfere with their learning. So they can have problems with attention, memory, retaining information. Back in 2000, they noted that some workers at some of the microwave popcorn factories had developed this severe and permanent lung disease that was irreversible. And so they termed it the popcorn lung because it came from the flavoring, like the butter flavoring, that was in the popcorn. And when these people inhaled it, then that led them to have an increased risk for developing this popcorn lung. So getting back to e-cigarettes, some of those flavorings, the diacetyl, can actually cause this popcorn lung.
The lungs themselves, if you can imagine what the surface of popcorn looks like, where it's all modular as opposed to the smooth surface of a lung. And therefore, if the surface is not smooth, it impacts its ability to function, to take in oxygen and release carbon dioxide.
What's worse is that kids and teens think that vaping is a harmless water vapor. It's quite the opposite. The e-cigarette aerosol that users breathe from the device and exhale can contain harmful substances.
So there is a misconception about flavored vaping solutions because many people think that it's just flavored water. However, in all of the flavored solutions, there's always trace amounts of nicotine in them, as well as formaldehyde and acetone.
We know for sure that formaldehyde does cause cancer, and that can be found in the juice of e-cigarettes. And then there's some other compounds like heavy metals, so lead and tin, for example, and we know that no level of lead is good for you. Organic chemicals like benzene you find in car exhaust. Those are volatile organic substances that are bad for you.
You don't really know what you're getting in the substance.
Because these devices are new and have little regulation, fatal problems are rising all across the country, even here in the great state of Texas.
We've been to the point we almost lost a student last year who went into something similar to cardiac arrest. And the way we understand it, it's that the student had really not been around the vaping or anything, and a friend convinced him, hey, just give it a try. And the one try, again, caused a significant reaction that almost cost him his life.
So maybe the child never intended to take in synthetic drug, but they have now shared a vape with someone else, and they've exposed themselves to synthetic drugs and all the side effects that come along with that.
Maybe the kid who owned the vape has built up a tolerance for whatever synthetic or whatever substance is in there, and the other kid not having it and having a very serious reaction that almost cost him his life.
Some other concerns, some of the batteries have exploded, and so there's actually been a death of one, it was an adult that died from the battery explosion, and there's been severe burns, not just to the face, but other parts of the body.
The FDA has suggested that teens who vape are more likely to eventually switch to tobacco cigarettes, including some who would have never smoked in the first place.
About half of those kids who do vape e-cigarettes, they go on to vape also marijuana, which can definitely affect their brain and their brain development as well. But other substances as well.
There's lots of research to indicate that teenagers who use nicotine products are at much higher risk of progressing to higher concentrated substances such as marijuana, cocaine, because the brain has become addicted to the sensation it provides.
Well, if they're continuously chasing that high, it's only a natural assumption that they're going to move to something more potent each time.
It seems nearly impossible to stop this epidemic from continuing its spread. Vaping manufacturers are targeting children, teens, and young adults by making their marketing appealing to them.
One of the things that I don't really understand is that we have laws against tobacco advertising. However, the vape manufacturers, they market it towards kids. They say they're not, but we've got a picture where it shows a notebook tablet, a vape, and a things to do, like study for this class and do that, and the vape is there, as well as using actors and influential people. Again, they're selling it as harmless, and our laws haven't caught up to match the tobacco piece.
Children find it very enticing because they have so many really great flavors. I read that there's over 8,000 different flavors of the juice, and the manufacturers, they entice the kids with very colorful products of their packaging. They have pictures of candy, they have pictures of, cake and ice cream, and so there's all these different wonderful flavors that are enticing these children. And a lot of these flavor juices, they contain nicotine. So there's a significant number of kids, they don't know that these products contain nicotine.
What adult wants Fruity Pebbles for a taste?
In addition, e-cigarettes are marketed and promoted using strategies that are not legal for regular cigarette advertising, such as TV, sports, and music event sponsorships, in-store self-service displays, and ads placed outside brick-and-mortar businesses at children's eye level. How can you tell if a child, student, or patient is using drugs or vaping?
With nicotine withdrawal, you can have significant symptoms. So the kids can be agitated, they can be sweaty, they can have nausea, they can have headache. So there's a number of symptoms that the parents could look for. And if they have any nicotine withdrawal, the kids are going to be craving nicotine. So they might be acting more secretive. If the parents notice that their grades have dropped, then you would think of some problems with inattention from the nicotine use, having trouble with memory. So those would be short-time and long-term effects. So parents really need to be vigilant and see what kind of devices their kids have. What are they carrying? What is in their backpack? What are their their children's friends have, and really educate their children on the dangers of e-cigarettes. And there's a significant number of good websites and good references that parents can utilize to help with that.
You would notice a change in their behavior. They may be more anxious, they may be jumpy, edgy, more protective of their phone because they don't want their guardian or their parent to see the text messages. They may have an increased need for money because certainly access to these drugs or substances cost money, so they may be wanting to do more jobs around the house for more money. But you may notice that they withdraw more from the family, have more interest in groups of people who maybe you don't agree that they're with, and you may notice that they're not sleeping as well as they used to.
So what can we do to protect our children?
For medical professionals, I would recommend asking the parent or the patient, have they ever had a seizure before? Because a common side effect of synthetic drugs is seizures. So if they've never had a seizure disorder as a child and they suddenly start developing seizures, it could be due to exposure to synthetic drugs. So that's an important question. And also during a well child checkup, if there's a way that the teenager could be talked with a trusted health professional without the parent being present, they may be more likely to open up and share the truth about if they've been vaping or not, and then the health professional could provide them with the advice.
Remember, look out for anything that resembles a USB flash drive. All subtle and sleek electronic devices that can be easily hidden from parents or teachers. Keep an eye out for behavioral changes, such as personality changes, increase in anxiety, lack of sleep and of focus, poor academic performance, depression, and increased heart rates. If you suspect a student is vaping, contact the campus administrator and police officer immediately.